Hey, I'm Anthony, and I'm so excited that you're here to learn something new. Get ready to make your work easier with some awesome Excel knowledge. Let's get started. Hey everyone, Anthony here with Excel Yourself, and today we're going to cover a quick hack, and we're going to talk about splitting student names. What do I mean by that? So on the screen you can see that I have some data here, probably data you're familiar with if you work with students at all, and you'll see that I have the students listed here with their last name, comma, their first name. I also am going to show you how to do this little trick in a second with first space last. But let's say we have this data in this case and we wanted to filter by first name, or in the case of the other example, we wanted to filter by last name. That's not really going to work because the data isn't split up. I don't have a last name column and then a first name column. Well, you might not have known this, but Excel has a pretty cool built-in feature called text to columns that allows you to split data up pretty simply. So let's dive right in. Okay, we'll start with last first because that's the one I have up on my screen. The first thing I want to do, and you'll see why I need to do this in a minute, I need to move this column all the way to the right. Either that or insert a couple of columns between A and B. I'm going to move it by, I selected the column by hovering over the column label, the letter A, and clicking and it chooses the whole column. And then I'm going to press and hold the Shift key on my keyboard and drag my cursor to the green line that separates the two columns, and you can see it's changing to that like directional pad. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and hold, and you can see that that green line moves. I'm still holding the Shift key, and I'm going to move it all the way to this space at the very end between H and I and let go. And you'll see that it actually moves the whole column all at once. So you could do that by cutting and pasting, but this way I find is much easier, much simpler. Okay, so now we've got our data all the way to the right, and it's still selected. So we need to flip over to the Data tab in the ribbon, and then we need to choose the Text to Columns option. This might be an option you've never even paid attention to before, but I bet you'll start using it now that you're going to know what it does. So let's click on it, and you'll see that it gives me two options here, delimited or fixed width. And I'm going to cover fixed width first because I absolutely never use it, and honestly I can't think of an example off the top of my head where I would need to use it, but let me just show you what it does so you can understand how this tool works. So I'm going to click fixed width and I'm going to click next, and then what it's asking me to do is to add a breakpoint, add a line where the data will break and move over to the next column. So let's just do it here. It's basically saying after this many characters, in this case it looks like 5, split the data and move to the next column. Okay, so let's hit next. It gives me a bunch of other options that I'm not going to play with, and I'm just going to hit finish. And you'll see what it did. It split the data after 5 characters into a second column. Now, like I said, I never use this particular option. I only ever use delimited because truthfully, thus far, I haven't found a need for fixed width. But if you have ever used this tool, or you can think of an example as to where this would be useful, I highly encourage you to drop that in the comments. I love when students teach the teacher because this is an example I've never used. So if you can think of any useful options for fixed width, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, I'm going to undo that because we're not going to split it that way. I'm going to do that by hitting Control-Z or Command-Z on a Mac. And what I'm going to do is go back into text to columns and instead leave it selected to delimited. Now, a delimiter is a character used to specify a breakpoint between chunks of data. So in the case before the fixed width, when I went next, I set a breakpoint right here after 5 characters. Well, instead of doing that at a fixed number of characters, I'm going to tell it to break at a certain specified character. So we're going to go next. And the nice thing is we already have a delimiter built in, a comma. It's already there. So I'm going to choose comma, and you'll see that it draws this line between my data. And I'm going to hit next, and again, it gives me these options. I usually just skip it and just go right to finish. And when I hit finish, you'll see that it splits up quite nicely. And I've got this list of student names all split up evenly. Great, we have our data split up now, but the only issue I would say is before we split it, let's go back for just a second. You'll see that in this cell, or in any cell, I had comma space Ernie, right? Or I had comma space Maureen, or whatever. There was a comma and then a space. So if I redo that text to columns, I'll just do it again real quick. Delimited, it's already comma. I just hit finish and it's done. The problem that we run into is now we have our data. It's all got this leading space in front of it. That's not ideal. You want your data to be a little more clean. There are a few ways that you could deal with that. One way is you could do a find and replace. So I would do Control H or Command H and say find space and then replace with nothing and replace all. And it's done. It says all those spaces were removed. The only problem you're going to run into with that option, I'm pretty sure I have, oh, in this case, I guess it wouldn't matter. It's in the last name. I was going to say I have a junior in here somewhere. But because the junior is in the last name, that would work. So my data is actually cleaned up now. So that was one option. Another option would be to use the trim function. I'm not going to show you that, but that's another option if you wanted to look that up. The trim function will allow you to trim off a certain number of characters. You could use a utility. You can see I have ASAP utilities installed. I'm not going to show you how that works, but that's another option. You could use VBA, which is you could write a script to remove that, but that's a pretty long and arduous process. I wouldn't go that far. One last option you could do if you really wanted, I'm going to undo this again, and I'll go back to my text to columns. I could delimit by comma and space. So now what it will do, it will say take out that chunk of the text as you split. It's worth noting that when you use a delimiter, it deletes the delimiter. So it says go all the way up, let's look right here, go all the way up through Iglesias up to the delimiter. Oh, there's a comma, and then delete that and split it. So if we tick on both comma and space, when I hit finish, that leading character is gone. But you'll see the problem here, it actually split it up into 3 where I have junior. So there's some trade-offs here. Text to columns can be a little messy, so you'll just need to be careful about how you split. But overall, doing that and having to type junior like this and move Steven back over to the right spot, much faster to do it in that one case, or that few cases, depending on how many students you have with a junior or a middle initial, than to have to type them all out manually. So that was last first. Now we'll do the same thing for first last. Again, we're going to move it by using that shift trick I showed you a minute ago. And then we'll do text to columns. But in this case, we're going to use just space. We're going to run into that same junior issue because the last name was Emig, comma, space junior. So in this case, you'll need to do that. You'll need to tack that name back on and then delete it here. And again, that cleanup in just a couple of instances is going to be a lot faster than having to type out every name separately. So in this case, let's move these back, again using that same shift trick that I showed you. And now we could turn on sorting and filtering. And I'm going to turn it off and then back on because it was already on. And you can see here, now I can sort this case by last name. And in the other case, I could sort it by first name. All right, that's it for this hack. Before you go, there's one more quick thing I wanted to share with you. If you liked this lesson or any other lessons I've offered here on Excel Yourself, you'll love my online course, The 6 Most Useful Excel Skills Educators Can Learn. I know that's a mouthful of a title. This course will walk you through all the basics, skills, and shortcuts you need to supercharge your work, whether you're a teacher, a counselor, a pupil accountant, or any other education professional. This course has everything you need to become an Excel guru at work. You can check it out right now at excelyourself.org/6skills-course. Again, that's excelyourself.org/6, the number 6, skills course. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.